Welcome everyone. This is our Wednesday Wisdom where we go over tips, tricks, and we'll get to that in a second. We go over tips, tricks, and information on band instrument repair. Today we're going to be going over the NeoPads or the Neo saxophone pads that we've developed here in the Sax Pro Shop. Before we get to that, we have some winners from last week. Now, of course, if you take the hashtag, which is for this week's going to be Neo Sax Pads. Put that in the comments below. That's going to give you a percentage off any of the courses that we have coming up or some of the Neo Sax Pads that we are offering, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. We have courses coming up. We've got some day courses coming up in January and February, as well as a Basics Done Right course coming up on February 20th. So make sure you take the hashtag, put it in the comments below, and we will give you 15% off of the tuition for any of the courses. We do have a winner for today. It is going to be John Lyles. John sent me an email to rich, R-I-C-H, at MusicMedic.com, and we will get you your 15% off any of the courses that are coming up. Now, if you take Neo Sax Pads, put it in the comments below, you will be entered in for next week's drawing, which is 10% off of a Neo Sax Pad set. So make sure you put that in the comments below. And we are doing this stream today to answer some questions. We've come out with this product. We've got a lot of comments and questions about how it works. And so we wanted to kind of go in depth and kind of show you how these work. Now, we're not going to try to sell you anything here. This isn't a selling session. This is, of course, a product that is available on our website. It does have a price, and it is available, and it is something that you could use if you wanted to try them out, but we do not want you to buy them.
Yeah, hypothetical.
This is all, yes.
Hypothetical.
All hypothetical.
If you were to buy them, this is how you would hypothetically install them.
Yes, and these would be the results that you would get, hypothetically.
Hypothetically.
But
all in theory.
Purely
Practice.
for education here.
Yeah.
So NeoPads, this is something, a saxophone pad that we've developed here, and they are constructed of a traditional leather, the same as our...
The Neo can.
They are constructed of a natural leather, just like our tan saxophone pads, our standard tan saxophone pads. They have a synthetic felt, a plastic backing, as opposed to the cardboard backing that we have on our traditional pads. And we chose the synthetics because they don't degrade like a natural felt and paper do. They also have a tilting mechanism. And this is kind of comprised of a Spud base that sits in the pad cup, and then it has a socket in the pad, and that's gonna do the leveling of the top of the pad onto the tone hole. So those are the basics of the pad. Now, Ryan, I wanted to talk to you and get your expertise on how to install these. Let's talk about the installation, of course, in this video, but let's also talk about how they compare to traditional pads.
Traditional pads, yeah. So we understand, how the NeoPad is so much better than a traditional pad. We have to understand how a traditional pad is installed. So you would take the pad, which has usually a cardboard backing, natural felt wrapped in leather, and you would apply usually some kind of adhesive. In the Pro Shop, we like to use the synthetic clear shellac. You can use hot melt. You can use natural shellac, but you're applying some kind of adhesive backing. You're heating then the pad cup up, usually using an air torch or some kind of hot air, open flame. You heat it up. You would stick the pad in, and then when you install the pad back onto or install the key back onto the saxophone, you're heating the back of that pad cup up, which allows you to kind of float the pad around, and that is what will give you kind of that level pad. So it's a lot easier to describe it than it is to do it.
Yes.
But I think you'll see when we get into installing the NeoPads and how the actual NeoPads work, you'll see why these are hopefully far more superior to than a traditional pad installation.
Particularly in time savings.
Absolutely.
And we'll demonstrate that here in a second. So
Yes.
How are the NeoPads different than a traditional pad? Before you show us how to install them, tell us how they're different.
How they're different is this leveling, to the NeoPad cam, this leveling mechanism right here that actually self-levels the pad. So the pad is not secured in there and solid in the pad cup. You just glue the bottom of this little spud into the pad cup, and that allows for that NeoPad to actually flex, or not really flex, but self-level. Okay, the pad itself doesn't flex. The whole thing will
Tilts.
move and compensate, and it's basically self-leveling.
Okay, so we've got that, and then how do we prepare ourselves or prepare the instrument for installing the pads?
You would do a lot of the prep work that you would do if you were installing a traditional pad. You would make sure that the pad cup is level, that the tone hole itself is level, that your proper key geometry, okay, or your pad cup geometry is centered over the tone hole, and it's not twisted this way or this way, and front to back. You would also make sure that you're using some kind of flat pad. The NeoPads are flat. Okay. And then some kind of key fitting so that your pad cup is not sliding and clicking back and forth. So those, 4 or 5, maybe 6 variables. If you do that, NeoPads will turn out the same, if not better, than traditional pads.
And we do have an article on our website, the 4 variables of pad installation, but we've also had some previous videos where we talk about the different variables of installation. So I'll put a link down below for that. Let me just make a note to do that.
Put the link.
So that you can see the video on how to do that, because we did add a variable in one of our last videos. So Ryan, we're going to make sure we follow the preparation for traditional pads. Now, this is a question I did get in the previous stream that we did on Facebook for this. Do the pad cups and the tone holes have to be perfectly level?
That's a great question. Yeah, they don't. They don't have to be 100% level.
Really?
Okay. Yes, it is an interesting, that you don't really have to completely level your tone hole, especially maybe if you're working with a rolled tone hole. So the NeoPads will kind of take up for any of those variables that are maybe aren't 100% perfect. If you do all of that, and if you get them to where they're 100% perfect, the job will turn out much, much better. But let's say you don't want to level the tone hole. Okay, you can get away with not 100% level tone holes.
Okay, well, let's show them
Sure.
how to do it. Let's
Installation.
let me get to a different view here.
Go to the overhead and the NeoPad cam. Patent pending.
And make sure you take Neo Sax pads. Put that in the comments below. That's going to enter you into the drawing for 10% off a Neo Sax pad set next week. Also, like, share, and subscribe.
That's right. That's right. Click the bell.
Share this with your friends. Say, hey, subscribe to this channel. These guys know what they're talking about, or they don't know what they're talking about.
These guys are crazy.
So I see you have your pad cups taken off.
Yep.
I notice that they are really clean.
Very clean. Yeah, that is the one thing about installing the NeoPads into pad cups is you have to make sure you clean out the inner surface. You can do that a number of ways. You can use your scraper, an old pad slick, a razor blade, get in there with your screwdriver. But what we found, a couple things that we use in the Sax Pro Shop that are very, very handy, which are one of these guys. There it is, this bristle disc and the yellow bristle disc. You can get in there and actually clean up the pad or the inside of the pad cup. The interesting thing about NeoPads is it only really mounts to the center. So you don't necessarily have to clean everything out. It's a good idea too, but you have to make sure that that center point is nice and clean and that you're down to bare brass. There it is right there.
And what about the other, yes, that bottle right
Yes,
there.
another thing that you can do is you can use some of this stuff, which is the Uncure. Dab a little bit in the center there, let it sit for a little while, use your screwdriver or a scraper, and that will remove any old adhesive, shellac, hot glue, whatever it is. Will do a good job of cleaning and prepping the inside surface of the pad cup.
Now, for you amateur technicians, also be aware that Uncure will remove lacquer kind of instantly.
Yes, be very careful. Yes.
So yeah, be careful with that. Don't just spill it all over the place. And it'll also take super glue off your fingers.
It is, yes. And you can see I should have used that on my fingers from the last video, but it will do it, I swear. I just didn't.
So, all right, so we've got our pad cups really clean. We've got our methods that we clean them out, talked about. Let's talk about installing the pad and checking the sizing.
Yes, very important for measuring your pad cups. Okay, hopefully you are measuring your pad cups, the inner diameter from the inner wall to the other inner wall. What you need to do to get a properly sized NeoPads, hashtag NeoPad, put it in the comments. There it is. You have to go a half size under. The reason for that is the NeoPad, when it's in the pad cup, needs a little bit of space all the way around, and this allows, as you can see, for that pivoting action. All right, so if you measure your pad cup, and this turns out to be a 38.5, you're going to go with a 38 NeoPad.
And the nice little tip about that is if you get some number that's kind of a little wonky, like say you get a 38.81, you can round down all the way to the next whole size. So you're at 38.81, it seems like it might be a 38.5, but you can go all the way down to a 38 and the pad's still going to function.
Absolutely. As long as the pad covers the tone hole, you're good to go.
Yeah.
So pad sizing, not as important. You do have a lot more flex when it comes to getting the correct size pad.
So now let's talk about pad protrusion. This is the amount that the pad actually sticks up out of the pad cup. There are varying opinions by technicians on how this should be. Ryan, can you talk about what you'd like to do and then the different ways to adjust the height of the pad in the pad cup?
Absolutely. And it's one of those variables of adjusting your pad cup geometry over the tone hole. Let's say you're in a tough spot, you can't really maybe adjust it. Maybe the spine is too small and you can't bend it up or bend it down. You can adjust the pad protrusion by the different sized spuds. So usually you can just put it in and you can actually check it now. You can see the pad protrusion there. If I grab, let's see this one here, this is a normal size one. I can check my pad protrusion. Maybe that's sitting a little low. And maybe I want a little bit more pad protrusion. I can grab one that has a slightly different or slightly thicker backing, and then you can see my pad protrusion is a little bit more. So you can adjust to that.
You're also going to get more tilt. So
yes,
just while you're getting set up there to glue in, the different spuds that come with the pads, here's the info on that. The pads themselves come with what we call the standard spud, and we designed that height to work with most modern saxophones. It's going to be the thinnest of the spuds, and when you order a NeoPad, that's what it comes with right there. You can easily pop that out, and you can put in what is called the medium spud, which is going to give you a little more pad protrusion, a little more tilt. Ryan has that, I think
it's this one right here. This is the medium.
And he's going to use that on one of the keys. So that's going to give you a little more pad protrusion. Basically, the standard and the medium spuds, pretty much all you're going to need for modern saxophones. And then we do have what's called the tall spud, which has a much thicker base, and it's going to give you a lot of tilt once that's installed in the pad cup. And you can use that on areas like bell keys, or areas where you need a lot more tilt.
Low D. Stelmers usually need a slightly thicker pad.
That's right. So those are the spuds, and of course, if you get a pad set, not that you would ever buy anything.
Hypothetically, if you were to buy them.
That's right. Hypothetically, you could get you also get the spud install kit, so you have to order that separately. Not that you would ever buy them.
Yes.
Please don't buy them.
Yes, we're not trying to sell. It's purely information.
That's right. But if you needed a pad set, I'd recommend you get the spud install kit. This gives you the ability to change the heights as needed and make sure your pad protrusion is even all around the instrument. Okay, Ryan, so we've done pad protrusion. Why don't we install with glue?
Sure, absolutely. I just want to point out, not that you were taking long, I could have installed every single pad in this NeoPads on the amount of time it's taken us to describe this. So it is, the doing of it is so much quicker than the explaining of the doing of it.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Again, I could have patted another horn in the time I took to say that. So you'd have been done. 2 horns down. So adhesive. This is the adhesive that you're going to be using to install the NeoPads. It is the rubber toughened CA glue, crazy glue, cyanoacrylate glue. And this is what you're going to be using to install the NeoPad spud into the pad cup. You could, although I don't recommend using it, regular traditional super glue. The problem with that is it tends to be a little bit more brittle, which is why we ended up testing the rubber toughened. So it does have, I'm not going to say a little bit of flex, but it's a little bit more shock absorbing maybe. After a million whacks in the pad whacker, this stuff held up.
Yeah, we haven't seen this glue fail yet. I'm sure at some point
Everything happens,
will
even the sun
fail.
goes down.
But all of the players that we put these pads into test have been using them for months in, you know,
Local players too.
fairly extreme conditions. And of course, our testing was extremely rigorous.
Yes.
And the glue has held up, as well as the pads and the engineered parts of the pads as well. So
That's right.
we really don't. I know there were a lot of questions online about how long are these going to last. They will last just as long as a traditional pad from what we've tested, if not longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so here we are talking again. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, that's another horn down. We've officially padded 3 horns within the time period of us talking.
So there's the rubber toughened
So there
glue.
it is, rubber toughened glue.
I'll put the link to that
Perfect.
in the bottom thingy, whatever it's called, description. Yeah.
So installing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our rubber toughened glue. A quick tip. In that time, I could probably install about 3 or 4 pads. If you're worried about applying the correct amount of glue, you can use one of these little pipettes. Put that on the end of your super glue bottle, and that way you can apply just the right amount of rubber toughened super glue. I have a very steady hand, so I will be installing it free-handed. So what I'm going to do is apply just a little bit. Again, I've cleaned the inside of my pad cup, very important. I've got a properly sized NeoPad. I'm going to apply a little bit of that rubber toughened glue to the back of the Spud. Not a lot, a little dab will do right about there like that. Okay, there we are. There's my little dab of glue. I'm going to then install that into the pad cup, and as I do, I make sure I have even space all the way around. I'll actually put my fingers on this and then pivot it north, south, east, west, making sure that the pad is able to move in all directions. So do the old round the world, depending on this. So, but again, you're not going to buy these, so you don't need to worry about
That's
this.
true. This is purely hypothetical.
Purely informational.
So we're checking the wiggle, the tilt on all sides, and once the glue sets, we would check our pivot one more time, and you're basically done.
That's it.
That's it.
Really, the last step is to assemble the key back onto the instrument. If it's one of those cases where you need to check pad timing, top stack, bottom stack, bell keys, you check your pad timing. But for something like this, a low C key, as soon as I put it back on the instrument, it's done.
Can we show them that?
Yeah. In fact, while we do that, I'm going to install the next one. I'm going to do it a little different this way. This is one for our E flat. I'm going to apply just a dab of glue to the center of the pad cup. So there we are, just a little dab of glue to the center of the pad cup. Taking my properly sized NeoPad, placing it directly in the center. And again, I like to do my north, south, east, west. Once the glue starts to dry a little bit, I do build around the world. But again, all hypothetical, you're not going to be buying these or using them, and you will not be saving time by putting these in. And it's done. Look. Done. Nothing up my sleeves. So like I said, last step is to just basically assemble.
Okay, let's go ahead and do that.
Go ahead
I
and
have.
assemble.
Oh, but before we do that, we have a couple pro tips.
Pro tip.
Let's talk about taking them out. Yeah, if you want to take these pads out, it's very easy. Ryan's going to show you how to do it.
Super easy. You just need something thin, like a blade of one of these snap knives, and you're going to put that in between the pad cup and the actual pad, and then it's just a matter of a simple little twist. It pops out, and you'll notice the Spud, even though this is fresh glue, 20 to 45 seconds it says on the bottom. That pad, that Spud is still attached to the inside of the pad cup, and I was able to remove my pad. One thing I forgot to mention is before we took this out, you just needed to make a little mark because, again, of that little pin that's on the Spud there. That little pin prevents this NeoPad from completely spinning around.
Oh yeah, that is an important detail.
Okay.
Sorry guys, we forgot about that.
So if you do, you can see my mark from the last time we did it, although I don't think it matches up. But it's very easy to match that. If you didn't make your mark, I'm going to match the slot in the back of the pad up with the Spud. And there we are. We're back in. Let me make my mark real quick just in case we have to take it out again.
So the Spud has a pin in it, and that keeps the pad from spinning in the pad cup.
There's the one. There's the real mark.
And so Ryan's marked where the direction of the Spud is in the cup so that he doesn't shear off the pin from the spud.
Again, once you get this in there, it's just a simple little twist,
And boom.
and it pops right out.
And then to put
Super
another,
easy.
and then he can put that pad right back in the same
back
place because he's marked it.
There you go.
Now you want to keep even pressure, light and even when you're popping in and popping out.
Yes.
Good advice for life in general. Now to remove the spuds, we are going to use some Uncure. You can use that to remove the spuds. If you say you've got your pad in there, you've glued it in, but you need a slightly taller spud, you can pry that out with a screwdriver. You can also use your Uncure to loosen the adhesive. And once that's out of there,
we go.
You can then clean out the rest of the adhesive with your bristle disc. You can also use your Uncure. So Ryan just puts some Uncure there, and then we don't have to do it.
Oh,
well,
okay.
you're
Well,
going to do
I
it?
did- I just
Oh,
did.
shoot. Okay.
I did it.
He did it. So
I
it's
did
got,
it.
he's
So
got
it's
the
there.
Uncure there, and then while that's sitting,
Put this guy on.
we're talking about removing spuds. Now the thin spud pops out a little easier than the thicker spud, but they're still going to have the same amount of hold, for the life of the pad. Basically, these pads are going to wear out in the same way that a traditional pad would wear out. Eventually, your leather's going to just get a little too hard, and it'll be time.
Yep. Such is life.
Questions. Does anybody have any questions? Neo Sax Pad, put it in the comments below to be entered in for 10% off a NeoPad set
Let's take a look to
next
see how
week.
it fits.
Oh, okay.
So,
cool.
no, yes, feel free to,
Yeah, we've got a pad installed there,
we
and
are. There's our sax pad. There's our Neo pad, and you can see it does pivot.
so you're moving the pad there and tilting it so it's not level.
So I've unleveled it now. You can see there, and as soon as I close it, there it levels itself, and then watch, still level. So it's not like a lot of people comparing this to the Bundy old Adjusta-Pads or whatever they're called, the gasket with the little rubber nipple on it. This is not like that whatsoever. It's not like every time this pad needs to level itself. Once it's leveled and it opens back up, it stays in that position. There's a slight bit of friction within that mechanism that allows the pad to stay in that position. So it's not every time. You're not going to feel like a flip-flop, flip-flop, flip-flop.
That's right.
Once it levels, it's good to go. But if something does happen and the key gets bumped or whatever, guess what? It's going to level itself.
Yeah, and my own personal horn, if
You got them.
Yeah, I've had them for, about half a year now, playing regularly. And if I've had something, sometimes I'll just be in a rehearsal and I'll just play with the pads. And then all I do is just close my fingers down and the pads are level again. Robert's asking, are you guys using these with your Uber hauls? And do they only come with plastic resonators? We are using them with some of our Uber hauls. Some customers like RuPads Extreme that have a little bit of a firmer feel than these pads. So some customers want those. But yeah, we
have used them in Uber hauls.
We
absolutely.
have used them in Uber hauls, and the guys love them because they just install them super quick.
Super easy.
Response is good, as from the player's perspective. They respond. The horn responds better for longer because you don't have that variable of the pad being unlevel or developing a deeper seat, and then having a leak you can't squeeze out with your fingers. The horn responds well down low for as long as the materials last. And so, yeah, as a pro player, I mean, the response for these has been good. So yes, Robert, we are using them in our Uber hauls, not in every single one because we let our customers choose their pads, but yep, they have, and
There we go.
the results have been very good.
Yeah. They
So-
still only have that plastic resin for now.
Oh yeah, that's right. And we are working on a metallized resonator to go with our engineered parts. It's probably gonna be a little while before we have that, but get some of these pads. Not that you would want to buy them, but get a couple. Maybe a C&E flat. Try them out in your own pad cup. It's really important that technicians try these pads out for themselves so they can see it for themselves. Although it's fairly obvious in the video here, but
Saw it here first.
I think once you have your hands on these, you're going to be very impressed with how much
Absolutely.
time savings. We're thinking 2/3 less time padding.
Yeah, I would spend hours and hours and hours padding horns versus, you know, this. As soon as you install them, it's done. No heat. No heat.
That's true.
No burned materials, no burned lacquer, no burned pads, no burned fingertips. I mean, it just saves you so much time. Hypothetically,
Yeah.
if you were to buy
right.
them, not that we're trying to sell you this.
But try the NeoPads out. Put NeoSax pads in the comments below. That's going to do it for us for right now. Next week, we're going to be back with a different video called Enough is Enough and when to actually change your pads. So we'll be talking about assessing a pad quality and pad condition and when to change them out. And hopefully you try a NeoSax pad in between now and then. And until next time, happy repairing.
That's good.